A stranger gave me everything I wanted. Yesterday he told me what he wants. There's 3 rules you learn too late. Rule 1, desperate people make deals they don't understand. Rule 2, perfect gifts always have invisible prices. Rule 3, when someone says they want nothing in return, they're lying about the timing, not the cost. I learned all 3 rules yesterday when the man in the gray suit knocked on my door at exactly 3:33 p.m. and told me what he wanted after 7 years of silence. But I should start at the beginning. Back when I thought finding $50,000 in unmarked bills on my kitchen table was the universe finally cutting me a break instead of the first payment on a debt I didn't know I was accumulating. It was 2017 and I'd just been diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma while working a job that barely covered rent, let alone chemotherapy that cost $8,000 per round. My girlfriend Bianca had left 2 weeks earlier after I told her about the cancer, taking our dog and half my furniture and leaving a note that said she couldn't watch me die. My brother Holden wouldn't return my calls because I'd borrowed money from him 3 times already and never paid it back. I was 31 years old and facing either bankruptcy or death, probably both, when I came home from my first chemo session to find my apartment door unlocked and stacks of $100 bills arranged in neat rows across my kitchen table. No note, no explanation, just $50,000 in cash sitting there like someone had forgotten it, except the bills were pristine and sequential and obviously placed there deliberately. I should have called the police immediately. That's what normal people do when they find mysterious money in their locked apartment. But I wasn't normal people anymore. I was dying people, the kind who calculate how many months of treatment 50 grand could buy and decide that questions about origins are less important than not dying at 31. So I took the money to the bank in a duffel bag and deposited it in increments small enough not to trigger federal reporting requirements, a technique I'd learned from a documentary about money laundering. The bank teller looked at me suspiciously when I made the 3rd deposit of $9,000 in as many weeks, but she processed it without asking questions. I used the money for chemotherapy and rent and buying back some furniture so my apartment didn't look like I'd been robbed, which technically I guess I had been, except in reverse. The cancer went into remission after 9 months of treatment I never could have afforded without that mysterious cash. My oncologist, Dr. Saffron, kept talking about how lucky I was to have caught it early enough and had good insurance, except I didn't have good insurance at all, just a stranger's money that had appeared exactly when I needed it most. I waited for police to show up with questions about laundered drug money or stolen cash. I waited for someone to demand the money back with interest and threats, but nobody came. The money stayed deposited and legitimate, and gradually I convinced myself it had been some kind of accounting error by the bank, that somehow 50 grand had glitched into my life through bureaucratic confusion that benefited me. Stupid, I know, but dying makes you want to believe in miracles. 2 years after remission, I was working as an assistant manager at a sporting goods store when the woman in the red dress came in looking for hiking boots. She was probably mid-50s with silver hair cut short and eyes that looked like they'd seen things they couldn't forget. She spent 40 minutes trying on different boots while I brought out boxes and made small talk, until finally she leaned close and whispered that my student loans from college had been paid off in full and I should check my account. I thought she was crazy and told her I didn't have student loans anymore, which was technically true because I'd defaulted on them years ago and destroyed my credit. She smiled like I'd said something funny and left without buying anything. And when I checked my email during lunch break, there was a notification from the Department of Education saying my $37,000 in defaulted loans had been satisfied by a third-party payment and my credit score had been restored. I tried to find the woman in the red dress by checking security footage, but the cameras had somehow stopped recording during the exact 40 minutes she'd been in the store. My manager showed me the gap in the footage and said it was a technical glitch, but the timestamp showed a perfect blank space surrounding her visit with precision that didn't feel accidental. I called the Department of Education 3 times trying to find out who'd paid my loans, but they said the payment had come through an anonymous third-party trust and they couldn't disclose information even to me. My credit score jumped 200 points overnight. Companies started sending me pre-approved credit cards. I could suddenly rent better apartments and get approved for car loans. Someone had purchased my financial freedom with money I never asked for and couldn't return. That same week, my landlord called to say my rent was being reduced by 30% because a housing subsidy program had randomly selected my unit for assistance. I checked with other tenants and nobody else had been selected, just me, just the guy who'd mysteriously had his student loans paid off by a stranger in a red dress who didn't appear on security cameras. I started writing down everything unusual that happened, trying to find a pattern or identify who was helping me and why. The list grew quickly. My car needed $2,000 in transmission repairs and the mechanic called to say someone had anonymously covered the bill. I got promoted at work despite being qualified for the position, and later my manager admitted she'd received a recommendation letter about me from someone she couldn't identify or remember meeting. My brother Holden called to apologize and offer me money, saying he'd felt guilty about abandoning me during cancer, though we'd barely spoken since my diagnosis ended. But then things got out of control. The rest of the story is linked below or on my channel.